The day Joe was born, and I went to see him in the nursery, a lot of things went through my mind. What kind of a child is he going to grow up to be? And he grew up to be a fine young man.
Joe always was the A student. He always brought home the best report card.
On a Sunday afternoon, we'd all be sitting around watching a football game. He would leave to go upstairs in his room and do his homework all afternoon.
I remember he had a nun in 7th grade that was the meanest nun in the school, but she loved Joe. Joe was her favorite, and that nun told Joe that he was going to really do something with his life. And I remember he was so happy because I think he was the only student in Holy Cross School that this nun liked. Archmere was a very difficult school, and he did very well there. And then he went to Villanova, and he was the frat boy at Villanova.
I recall after a night of drinking at one of our college watering holes, he invited several of us back to his parents' home in Valley Forge. And while I thought he was going to bring out, at best, some potato chips and dip, he brings out a beautifully presented tray of crab legs, wonderfully presented in a wonderful mound. And even at the age of 20, he showed such a wonderful flair and art of presentation.
He used to do some things, though, like some parties sometimes, a few like little wild parties he'd have at my parents' house when they weren't home. And then after that, he decided to go to law school.
To see that boy graduate that day, best day of my life.
We share a lot of common ground in terms of what we think about family and faith and the things that are really important to us. I just think the world of him as a person and what he represents.
Benevolent, always giving of his time as if he had all the time in the world.
Little did I know when Joe decides to take on something, he always underpromises and always over-delivers. The way he leads, it's inclusive, it's transparent, and it is a rare quality because people want to be part of Joe's team.
He's a leader. He's a leader. He's the head of the family.
I remember Joe loved my grandfather, Joe Del Raso, so much. And he was a little boy, and my grandfather was very sick, and Joe got on his bike, and he rode over there to see him.
He went on his own to go visit him.
Joe's loyalty to his family is most recognizable instantly. But the other part of it is that he really wants to give back to the community in which he lives.
Well, I hear often about what he is doing in his hometown in Philadelphia, giving back to the community. And Joe's involved in so many ways in doing just that. What he's done over in Italy in terms of give back is unbelievable in terms of the earthquake relief. But that's him. You know, that comes from the heart. You can't teach that.
The first thing he wanted to do was go over there and help these people. He knew what they would be going through.
He brings a real spirit to whatever he does. He's a very, very smart person, has been extremely successful in his professional life.
He's very bright, he's intelligent, a good communicator, someone who looks for ways to get things done, not for reasons why we can't.
He has a wonderful capacity to simplify things for people and to find ways to connect people. Joe is the precursor to LinkedIn. He links people, he connects them, he finds ways that they can relate to each other.
You could pick up the phone and call Joe, and he's there for you, and he's going to help you.
He used to always say that the definition of a friend is someone that you could call at 3 in the morning, and they're not going to ask you, why are you calling?
In your life, if you could meet one Joe Del Raso, you are blessed.
There are people who stand out for various reasons. Joe is a guy who you want in the foxhole with you.
Joe is fearless when it comes to doing the right thing and helping people. And that's the kind of moral courage that he displays.
If he believes in something, he's going to fight for that particular ground if he believes it's the right thing to do. He's a stand-up guy, and that's what matters to me.
The thing I love about Joe is his loyalty to his family. He talks about Anne, he talks about his 2 beautiful daughters and his accomplished son, and I have been hearing these stories since they were very, very small.
I see him with like the young people that work for him, that he brings into the firm, and he must be the best mentor ever. He must inspire these young attorneys, which, like, in his position, he doesn't really have to do that, but he does. They must walk away and be like, this guy is teaching me things that will go with me for the rest of my life.
He is respected on a lot of levels, and certainly on his very local community level, but on a national level, and I would say through his firm on a global level as well. I've seen him work with leaders on both sides of the aisle, whether we're talking about Nancy Pelosi or former President Bush. Joe brings a quality that people are attracted to, and they believe him because he tells the truth.
Joe Del Raso's integrity is one of his hallmarks. It's one of the things that come to mind when people talk about Joe and describe Joe. It's one of the first things they say about him is that you can trust him, and you can trust him to talk to you straight. And if he doesn't agree with you, he will tell you that as well. But he will tell you that without offending you.
He has such a great love of life. You know that within the first 10 minutes that you meet him. And he loves every minute of every day of his life, I would say.
He loves to see people celebrating life and all of its diversity.
Joe has a great zest for life. He's always smiling.
He goes from morning to night, and he looks as neatly fresh at 11 at night as he did at 7 in the morning when you first saw him. Not a bead of sweat, the tie is perfect, and he's got an energetic manner about him. So his days are 25/8, not 24/7.
He's always looking to the future. Every single day he gets up and says, what am I going to do today that's going to make a difference?
His vision is not in some cloud. It's brought down to a ground floor level into bits and pieces that are very achievable and doable for people. And he brings out the best in each of us. He's a mentor and guiding light for many.
He's a counselor, he's a confidant. He's the person that I would go to first with the greatest distress or the greatest problem and ask him to help and lend his judgment and, more importantly, his character and his experience.
He is one of those people that I admire so greatly and look up to so much.
He deserves this great honor, and I'm sure there are going to be many, many more in Joe's future.
Our relationship has grown as a result of mutual respect, and I look forward to many more years of sharing our lives together.
Yeah, I want to tell him I love him. I think that's I want to thank him for being my friend, being a business associate. I want to thank him for who he is, and I want to thank him above all for the love that he has given to me and my family.
I think he knows how we all feel about him, how I feel about him, how it is to be raised behind somebody like him, even though he always did bring home the good, better report card, but I never held that against him.
I know there's a broad group of people who are very, very proud of him, and I know I see in Joe probably the best is the person who he has dedicated the scholarship fund to, his dad, Vincent.
We all just look up to him and love him, and he has inspired all of us in so many different ways.
I see so many of the qualities of his dad in Joe, and I know the greatest compliment to Joe is to say that he really is his father's son.
Joe, I would say I've always been so proud of you.
And that we love him.
And that I love him so much.